This is Larry the Bearded Wonder with World 11, and you're tuned to the World 11 Podcast Network. Press start to engage your mind.
Hello, this is your host Zoe, and welcome to Mind Over Media Podcast, a podcast powered by the World 11 Network. Here's a note for all listeners. I am not a licensed psychologist, and all views from the show are from my point of view or from the point of view of my guests. Please take this into consideration while listening. Thank you. In today's session of Mind Over Media, we will be discussing the song Overwhelmed by Royal and the Serpent. We will be discussing how it expresses feelings during sensory overload. So have a seat and relax as we get ready to blow our minds.
Spoilers.
As previously stated, there are spoilers ahead. While we try not to reveal everything about the media we cover, there are spoilers about the content. Keep that in mind as you enjoy today's show.
I get overwhelmed so easily. My anxiety creeps inside of me, makes it hard to breathe. What's come over me feels like I'm somebody else.
Alright, so let's get right to it. The song Overwhelmed was originally released in the year 2020, and if you were anywhere near TikTok, it kind of blew up, and a lot of people were using that sound on TikTok. And the singer for Royal and the Serpent, their name being Ryan Santiago, stated that their inspiration for the song came from her feelings of sensory overload dealing with certain points of her career, going to all these concerts, all the people, all the lights, all the sounds, the hustle and bustle of just moving around. It all kind of became too much for them. Initially in the song's verses, there are some lyrics that really hit home for me, and they really, I think, help exemplify some of the symptoms of sensory overload. So in the first verse, they talk about the sound of the TV and the brightness of the lights being too much for them. She equates the sound makes her feel like her ears are bleeding, and that the lights make her feel like she's overheating. More than likely, the sounds and lights that they were experiencing were at a quote-unquote normal level. But when you're in sensory overload, everything can feel like a lot. The smallest touch, the smallest sound. I remember one time when I was experiencing one of these episodes, my partner had this clock on the wall and it was ticking, and that was even setting my teeth on edge. In her second verse, she just talks about how it feels to be around a lot of people. Now, her being a performing artist, you can imagine going to a concert and there are thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people at these concerts. That can be a lot, but sometimes even being around a little bit of people can seem like a lot. I remember hanging out with friends, and it was only like a handful, and it just kind of became too much. Everyone was talking and talking over each other, and I had to completely walk away and go to a room by myself. And that's what she gets at in her second verse. Now, let's talk about her amazing chorus to this song. It says, I get overwhelmed so easily. My anxiety creeps inside of me, makes it hard to breathe. What's come over me feels like I'm somebody else. And then later in the song, the chorus changes the end, and it says, my anxiety creeps inside of me, makes it hard to breathe. Or not hard to breathe, but it makes me silent when I try to speak. Sorry. And this speaks volumes. One, for starters, the way her voice sounds in this chorus is wonderfully eerie, and I love it. And for some people, reaching that threshold of sensory overload can happen very quickly. Hence the lyric, I get overwhelmed so easily. This can be especially true for those on the autism spectrum, those who have ADHD, or those who have generalized anxiety disorder, and also people who experience panic disorder. The nervousness and anxiety felt from sensory overload can be all consuming. All you can think about is how everything is too much, and it will consume you until you no longer feel like yourself. It's all you can think about, the noises and the sounds, and you don't feel like yourself at all. But the lyrics from the last bridge really caught my attention. It said, I should be fine, but it's all too much. I should be fine, but I'm not. And I think this speaks a lot to how neurotypical people talk to people who are experiencing sensory overload. They might say that they're overreacting, or, nothing's going on around you. This is normal. What's wrong with you? And then, of course, that makes those experiencing this sensory overload feel ostracized and feel like, something is wrong with them because, why can't they handle this? But I'm here to tell you that there is absolutely, positively nothing wrong with you. You are doing the best that you can in these situations. So do not tell yourself, I should be fine. It's okay to not be fine. So now you might be asking, okay, we know a little bit about what sensory overload is. Now, what can I do to help myself in these situations? First, if you have the ability to take yourself away from whatever is causing your sensory overload. If that involves going into a dark room by yourself, completely away from everything, that is okay. You do not have to force yourself to stay in that situation. Now, of course, there are going to be situations where you can't do that. I used to be a teacher, and trust me, there were moments while I was teaching that I was in full sensory overload, but it's not as if I could have just walked out of my classroom. So some things that can help for that are counting down slowly from 10, taking long, deep breaths. I personally use the 4-corner method, which is breathing in 2, 3, 4, then you hold for 2, 3, 4, you breathe out 2, 3, 4, and then you hold 2, 3, 4. And I personally repeat that process 4 times. And so that really helps me. If you can, try listening to calming sounds, put something calming in the background. I would often do that in my classroom. I would go and put on calming music, and it would normally help, tone the students down, but it would also help calm me. So it just kind of brought the overall sensory input in the room down. You can distract yourself by reading a book, or keeping a small fidget nearby can also help. It helps you focus on something close and in your hands, and not focusing on what's going around you. Hopefully, all of these tips will be helpful for you. I really hope that they are. For one, if you have not heard this song, I really suggest that you go and listen to it. I listen to it a lot when I am feeling stressed out and overwhelmed by my anxiety, because I have ADHD and generalized anxiety disorder. And so sensory overload happens a lot for me. And I'm also currently have the possibility of being on the autism spectrum, but we are waiting for tests and stuff to figure out if I actually do. So lots of different things within myself can cause sensory overload. But this song, even though it's talking about this phenomenon, the way that it's written and performed, the song itself really helps to calm me down. It is beautifully written and performed. Well, it looks like the time for our session has come to an end. Make sure to come and join us next week for another episode of Mind Over Media. I'm Zoe, and as always, remember to protect your peace. You can find Mind Over Media podcast in the World 11 podcast feed at world11.podbean.com. All spelled out, all one word. World 11 Podcast Network can also be found on all major podcatchers, such as Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Good Pods. You can find the Mind Over Media podcast on Twitter at MindMediaPDcast, and the entire World 11 network at World1_1 podcast.